I'm 31 years old and I don't drink. In fact, I've never been drunk. Alcohol and drinking plays a huge role in so many cultures around the world. But I want to talk about what my experience has been like as somebody who has never taken part in this social norm. There are plenty of reasons why people don't drink. Alcoholism could run in the family, or maybe they're a recovering alcoholic themselves. Maybe they have an intolerance or they have a really bad reaction when they drink. Or maybe they're just not interested. Any reason that someone doesn't drink is completely valid, and it shouldn't matter what that reason is. But let's be real, we're human and we like to understand why. And it seems like some answers are more acceptable than others. Now you can imagine that the answer to why don't you drink can be deeply personal for some people, and they may not be comfortable sharing, especially if they don't have a close relationship with you. But what if someone were to say that they weren't interested in drinking or it just wasn't for them? Oftentimes, that's not an answer that many people accept or understand. More questions usually follow, and some take it upon themselves to try and get that person to drink. Whether we like it or not, peer pressure is a part of life. It can be influential. I think we've all experienced peer pressure at some point. But there's a point where peer pressure crosses a line and can feel a little more aggressive. So I think it's time to share my personal experience. Let's start all the way back in high school. Now, I never wanted to make a big deal of it, but people knew that I didn't drink. And I think this was a little more accepted and not completely abnormal because the legal drinking age in the US is 21. Now, you and I both know that that doesn't stop people from drinking. But surprise, surprise, I wasn't invited to high school parties. That honestly didn't bother me much, but everything changed senior year when it was time for prom. I was gonna go with one of my guy friends and I was genuinely so excited. So he went and asked the other people in his prom group whether it'd be cool if I joined. Turns out they didn't want me there because I didn't drink and they thought I would be a buzzkill. That really stung. I never wanted people to think that I was a buzzkill. That's something that still matters to me today, and I think it stems from that experience. Let's fast forward to college. We all know that there is a very, very prevalent drinking culture in college, particularly in the US. And this is where I began noticing some patterns that I still encounter today. Just about every party I went to, I would encounter a handful of people who would ask me why I wasn't drinking. And that's when my answer wasn't good enough or acceptable. So what would happen? Most people would challenge my answer, and some would go as far as making it their mission to try and get me to drink. And then some of those people would continue talking to me about it and pestering me weeks and even months after they learned that I don't drink. If you can't tell, it drove me nuts. And it even got to the point where I had genuine concerns that certain people were gonna try and spike whatever I was drinking. I didn't understand why people would care so much about what I did or didn't do. And ultimately, why was it their business? After graduating college, I entered the business consulting world and I thought things would be different. I thought things would change, and nothing has changed. Little did I know that the business consulting world would have a very active drinking culture. And on my first day, on my first project, my project manager asked me if I drank. When I gave my answer, his response was, "Well, you're on the wrong project." That did not make me feel good about joining that team, and I was never really made to feel like I was a part of it. I'm happy to report that things have gotten a lot better over time, and I think that's because I work with a really great team, but I'm also working from home, and so I'm not in a whole lot of situations where my lack of drinking comes up. And in my personal life, I'm not really hanging out with friends in scenarios that involve a whole lot of drinking. However, I recently encountered a circumstance with a friend where my lack of drinking came up. And keep in mind that this was a situation where everybody around me was drinking, so I mean, it was bound to come up. But I was really sad when I realized that all of a sudden their intention was to try and get me to drink. And I specifically remember the excitement on their face when they thought I had an alcoholic drink in my hand, and then the disappointment that followed when they realized that's not what it was. And that one moment brought up so many emotions and memories I had around people doing essentially the same thing. Now, I don't hold it against this person or the people in the past. It was a little sketchy with some of the people that, I had concerns that I previously stated, but you get my point. Like, I get it. I really do get it. It's an odd thing. You just don't encounter it a whole lot. And when people are doing something outside the social norm, why? That's what people want to know. But when the reason why doesn't meet someone's standards, the answer is generally challenged and often invalidated. I think at the end of the day, they're just curious and they want to understand, and they think it's just harmless fun and harmless banter. But what they don't know is that for me, it's tiring and it gets old and it makes me feel like I'm not being accepted. And I don't think that it should cause other people to treat me or anybody who doesn't drink differently. I know that I'm not the only person out there who's dealt with this, and there are two reasons why I wanted to make this video. One, to let those who've gone through similar things know that they're not alone. And two, to encourage everyone to think about whether you need to ask somebody why they don't drink. Based on my own personal experience as well as conversations I've had with others, people who don't drink generally tend to be pretty quiet about it. We want to fly under the radar and we want to blend in. And I do think that there are some instances where people who do drink ask this question and they react in more of a defensive way because they don't want to be judged for drinking. There's a very good chance that that person isn't judging you. Again, chances are they just want to blend in, they want to have a good time just like everybody else. But the way that they have a good time might be a little different than yours, and that's okay. But I also think it's a good opportunity for those people to reflect inward and ask themselves why someone else's opinion matters. If there's anything you take away from this video, I hope it's that a person's reason for not drinking shouldn't matter. Whatever their reason is valid and it should be respected. And again, you may not know what a person has gone through. And if anything that I've said has resonated with you, I hope you'll hit the like button and I hope you'll consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. I appreciate it more than you know. Bye guys.